Too Late the Hero was not just another World War II adventure, it was a descent into a hellish jungle of ego, rage, and real-life danger that mirrored the brutal cynicism on screen. The war being fought behind the camera was far more vicious than the one being filmed in front of it. What audiences saw was a story of reluctant heroism. What they did not see was a production collapsing under the weight of star-on-star violence, a director's war with his own cast, and a location so dangerous it was actively trying to kill the crew. Today, we are marching into the jungle to uncover 20 shocking facts about Too Late the Hero that will make you question everything you thought you knew about this war classic. And stick around for a bonus fact about the secret message hidden in the film's final, devastating frame. Number 1, the film's 2 stars had a real, bloody fistfight. The tension between Michael Caine and Cliff Robertson was not just acting, it erupted into a real-life, bare-knuckle brawl that shut down production. The clash of egos between the 2 leads was a powder keg from day one. What audiences did not know was that the simmering animosity finally exploded in the sweltering Philippine heat. It started as a heated argument over a scene, but quickly escalated. Robertson, a method actor deeply immersed in his role, reportedly made a disparaging comment about Caine's more relaxed acting style. Caine, never one to back down, responded in kind. Words turned to shoves, and shoves turned to punches. Witnesses described a shocking, violent scuffle that had to be broken up by stunned crew members. Director Robert Aldrich, instead of firing them, allegedly saw the raw hostility as perfect for their characters. The incident was kept a tight-lipped secret from the studio, but the on-set atmosphere was shattered, leaving a tension so thick you could feel it in every frame they shared. Number 2, the director, Robert Aldrich, was despised by his cast. Robert Aldrich was not just a demanding director. He was a tyrant who actively cultivated a hostile environment to get the performances he wanted. Known for his abrasive personality and brutal filmmaking style, Aldrich saw actors as instruments to be tuned through pressure and conflict. What audiences did not know was that he would deliberately pit actors against each other, whispering criticisms to one about the other to fuel on-set resentment. Michael Caine later described Aldrich as a sadist who enjoyed watching his actors suffer. Aldrich's philosophy was simple. The film was about men breaking under pressure, so he would break his actors under pressure. He pushed them to their physical and emotional limits in the 100-degree jungle heat, refusing to call for breaks or show sympathy. This approach created a constant state of anxiety and fury on set, which, while resulting in powerful performances, left the cast feeling abused and emotionally scarred by the experience. The film's cynical tone was not just written into the script, it was beaten into the cast. Number 3, the Philippines location was a war zone. The jungle location was not just a backdrop, it was an active, dangerous enemy that nearly destroyed the film and its crew. Shooting in the Philippines in 1969 meant navigating a country on the brink of political chaos under the Marcos regime. What audiences did not know was that the film crew was frequently caught in the middle of actual firefights between government forces and communist rebels. The production had to hire private security guards, many of whom were former soldiers, to protect the set. The dangers were not just political. The crew was ravaged by tropical diseases, with dozens of people falling severely ill with dengue fever and dysentery. One crew member was bitten by a deadly spider and had to be airlifted to a hospital in Manila. The oppressive heat and humidity were so extreme that film equipment would frequently malfunction, and the cast and crew were constantly on the verge of heat stroke. The production was not just simulating a war, it was surviving one. Number 4, Michael Caine refused to do his own stunts after a near-death experience. Michael Caine was not just a pampered movie star. He was an actor who drew a hard line after staring death in the face. While known for being a hands-on performer, Caine drew the line on Too Late the Hero after a stunt went terrifyingly wrong. What audiences did not know was that during a scene involving his character running through an explosion, the timing was miscalculated. The special effects charge detonated far too close to him, and the blast wave threw him violently to the ground, leaving him temporarily deafened and with severe burns on his arms and neck. The incident left him deeply shaken. From that moment on, Caine flatly refused to perform any more dangerous stunts, insisting on using a stunt double for the remainder of the shoot. This created a new conflict with director Aldrich, who saw Caine's refusal as a breach of their unspoken suffer for your art contract. The standoff was another source of tension on an already fractious set, but Caine held his ground, prioritizing his life over the director's vision of authenticity. Number 5. The film's budget was gutted by the studio, forcing a rewritten ending. Too Late, the hero was not just a creative vision, it was a victim of corporate bloodletting at MGM. During production, the studio was in a state of financial freefall, undergoing a massive corporate takeover that sent shockwaves through its entire slate of films. What audiences did not know was that the new management, desperate to cut costs, slashed the film's budget by nearly a third with virtually no warning. This brutal act of studio interference had devastating consequences. Director Robert Aldrich was forced to abandon his planned spectacular finale, which involved a large-scale, coordinated attack on a Japanese base. Instead, he had to concoct a new, much cheaper ending on the fly, a desperate cat and mouse chase through the jungle. This last-minute rewrite is why the film's climax feels so different in tone from the rest of the movie. It is a gritty, personal showdown born not of artistic choice, but of a desperate, last-ditch effort to save a film that the studio was actively trying to bury. Number 6. Ian Bannon's alcoholism fueled on-set chaos. Ian Bannon's portrayal of the cynical soldier Jock Thornton was not just a performance, it was fueled by a very real and destructive alcoholism that made him a wild card on set. The brilliant Scottish actor was known for his talent and his love of the drink. What audiences did not know was that his drinking during the Philippine shoot was out of control, creating constant disruptions. He would frequently show up late to set or not at all, forcing the production to halt and reschedule entire scenes around his availability. When he was on set, his behavior was erratic and unpredictable. There were days when he was brilliant, delivering a tour de force performance, and other days when he was incoherent and unable to work. Director Aldrich, rather than firing him, seemed to revel in the chaos, often incorporating Bannon's drunken instability into the character of Jock. This approach made for compelling cinema, but it created a nightmare for the producers and a deeply uncomfortable working environment for the rest of the cast and crew. Number 7. The film was a massive box office bomb and effectively ended Aldrich's career. The film's brutal reception was not just a critical disappointment, it was a commercial catastrophe that had dire consequences for its legendary director. Too Late, the hero was released to a public that, in 1970, was growing tired of cynical war films and was flocking to more optimistic counterculture fare. What audiences did not know was that the film was a colossal flop, failing to recoup even a fraction of its budget. The failure was a devastating blow to Robert Aldrich. While he would go on to make a few more films, including The Longest Yard, he never again regained the industry power or A-list status he had enjoyed in the 1960s. The movie's failure effectively marked the end of his golden period as a major Hollywood force. The irony is that the film, which depicts a mission doomed from the start, became a real, life-doomed mission for its director, a cinematic metaphor for the collapse of his own career at the hands of a changing industry and a studio that no longer had his back. Number 8. The original screenwriter had his name removed. The film's credited screenwriter was not the one who did most of the heavy lifting. The original writer, Robert Dylan, had his name removed from the project in protest. What audiences did not know was that Dylan's original script was a much more traditional, heroic war story. When Robert Aldrich came on board, he demanded massive rewrites to inject his signature brand of cynical, anti-heroic violence. Aldrich brought in another writer, Lucas Heller, to completely overhaul the script, stripping out almost all of Dylan's work. Dylan, seeing his vision completely distorted and disrespected, exercised his right to have his name removed from the credits. The film was ultimately credited to Aldrich and Heller, but the final script was a Frankenstein's monster of clashing tones, born from the conflict between a traditional war narrative and a director's desire to deconstruct the genre. This behind-the-scenes battle over the film's very soul is why the story feels so conflicted, torn between moments of conventional heroism and brutal, nihilistic despair. Number 9. Cliff Robertson's method. Acting drove everyone insane. Cliff Robertson was not just playing the obsessed Lieutenant Lawson, he was living him, and his commitment to the method drove the entire cast and crew to the brink of insanity. Robertson's process involved staying in character at all times, treating the Filipino extras and crew with the same contempt his character would show his own men. What audiences did not know was that he would refuse to speak to Michael Caine between takes, maintaining the hostile dynamic of their on-screen relationship. He would perform grueling physical exercises in the jungle heat, pushing himself to the point of exhaustion to feel his character's desperation. While this dedication resulted in a powerful, intense performance, it made him almost impossible to work with. His intensity was so relentless that it created a palpable sense of dread on set. Director Aldrich encouraged it, but for everyone else, it was like being trapped in the jungle with an actual unexploded bomb, never knowing when he might go off. Number 10, the final scene was almost censored for being too bleak. The film's final, soul-crushing image was not just a bold creative choice, it was a scene that the studio desperately wanted to cut, fearing it was too nihilistic for audiences. In the ending, Caine's character, having finally completed his mission, is accidentally shot and left to die alone in the mud. His last act being a futile attempt to warn his own side. What audiences did not know was that MGM executives, after seeing the dailies, were horrified. They argued that the ending was pointless, depressing, and a betrayal of the audience's emotional investment. They demanded Aldrich shoot a more conventional, heroic ending where Caine's character survives and is celebrated. Aldrich refused, famously stating that the film was about the stupidity and waste of war, and a happy ending would be a lie. He fought the studio tooth and nail, and in a rare victory for an artist over the system, he won. The bleak ending remains, a powerful testament to Aldrich's refusal to compromise his vision, even at the cost of commercial appeal. Number 11. The film's sound design was a groundbreaking work of chaos. The film's immersive audio was not just recorded, it was meticulously crafted to create a sense of psychological disorientation. The sound design in Too Late the Hero is a character in itself, a constant, oppressive presence of jungle noise, insect hums, and distant, unnerving explosions. What audiences did not know was that sound editor Robert Aldrich employed revolutionary techniques to create this atmosphere. He spent weeks in the Philippine jungle, recording ambient sounds with multi-directional microphones to capture the 360-degree feeling of being surrounded. He then layered these sounds in the mix, often distorting them slightly to make them feel unnatural and threatening. The result is an audio landscape that feels as hostile and claustrophobic as a jungle itself. This innovative approach to sound was a key factor in the film's success in creating a truly visceral sense of dread, a technique that would influence countless war and action films that followed. Number 12. The film's title was a last-minute studio change. The film's iconic title was not the original choice, it was a cynical marketing ploy dreamed up by a desperate studio. The film was shot under the title The Walking Stick, a reference to a piece of radio equipment that was central to the plot. What audiences did not know was that after disastrous test screenings, where audiences found the title confusing and the film too bleak, MGM panicked. In a last-ditch effort to rebrand the movie as an action-packed war thriller, the marketing department came up with the punchier, more exploitative title, Too Late the Hero. The change infuriated Robert Aldrich, who felt it cheapened his film and misrepresented its cynical tone. He saw it as a classic example of a studio not understanding its own product. The new title, while catchy, created a false expectation for audiences who were anticipating a more traditional, gung-ho war movie, contributing to its poor reception and cementing its status as a misunderstood masterpiece. Number 13. Denholm Elliott's performance was largely improvised. Denholm Elliott's heartbreaking performance as a timid medical officer was not just scripted. It was a work of improvisational genius that broke the tension on set. Elliott, playing a character terrified of the jungle and the mission, brought a much-needed dose of humanity to the film. What audiences did not know was that many of his most memorable lines and nervous tics were not in the script. Robert Aldrich, recognizing Elliott's unique talent for finding the comedy and pathos in a situation, would often encourage him to just go and see what happened. Elliott would stammer, fidget with his glasses, and deliver rambling monologues about his fear of germs that were entirely his own creation. These moments of improvisation provided a stark contrast to the macho posturing of the other characters and were a welcome relief for the cast and crew. Elliott's ability to find humor and heart in the hellish environment was a testament to his skill as an actor and provided the film with its most soulful moments. Number 14. The film was a major influence on Saving Private Ryan. Too Late the Hero was not just a forgotten 70s war film, it was a direct stylistic influence on one of the most acclaimed war movies ever made. Decades after its release, Steven Spielberg cited Too Late the Hero as a key reference for the brutal, chaotic realism he wanted to achieve in Saving Private Ryan. What audiences did not know was that Spielberg specifically studied Aldrich's use of handheld cameras, visceral sound design, and his refusal to glamorize violence. The depiction of soldiers being torn apart by sudden, impersonal explosions in the Philippine jungle directly inspired the harrowing D-Day landing sequence in Ryan. Spielberg praised Aldrich's film for its unflinching honesty and its portrayal of war as a terrifying, random, and dirty business. This hidden lineage shows how Too Late the Hero, despite its commercial failure, had a lasting impact on the war genre, its DNA embedded in the cinematic language of some of the most successful war films of the modern era. Number 15. The Japanese soldiers were played by untrained local farmers. The film's Japanese antagonists were not professional actors. They were local Filipino farmers and laborers hired for a few dollars a day. The production, facing a tight budget and a lack of available Japanese actors in the Philippines, resorted to casting locals to fill out the enemy ranks. What audiences did not know was that these men had no acting experience and were often terrified by the simulated combat. They were given uniforms and rifles and told where to run and when to fall down. The language barrier was immense, with communication happening through a combination of broken English, frantic gestures, and an interpreter. While this resulted in some unconvincing death scenes, it also added a strange layer of authenticity. These were not actors pretending to be exhausted and scared. They were real people, many of whom had lived through the Japanese occupation, being thrust back into a simulated version of that trauma for a Hollywood movie. Number 16. Michael Caine wore the same shirt for the entire shoot. Michael Caine's grubby, sweat-stained costume was not just a detail, it was a deliberate, unhygienic choice that added to the film's oppressive realism. From the moment his character, Lieutenant Hornsby, lands on the beach, he is wearing a tattered, short-sleeved shirt. What audiences did not know was that for the entirety of the grueling Philippine shoot, Caine insisted on wearing the exact same shirt without ever having it properly cleaned. He believed that by accumulating real dirt, sweat, and grime, the costume would tell a story of its own. By the end of production, the shirt was reportedly stiff with dried sweat, caked in mud, and smelled unbearable. Caine's co-stars complained, but he refused to waver. This method commitment, while extreme, is visible on screen. The shirt's gradual decay is a visual barometer of Hornsby's journey from a reluctant, clean-cut officer to a desperate feral survivor, a testament to Caine's dedication to his craft. Number 17. The film's real hero is the one who dies first. The film's most heroic character is not the one who survives. It is the one who sacrifices himself at the beginning, a deliberate subversion of audience expectations. The mission is led by the gruff professional Sergeant Mackenzie, played by the great Harry Andrews. What audiences did not know was that Robert Aldrich intentionally cast Andrews, an actor who embodied traditional British military authority, only to kill him off in the first act. This shocking act was a statement from Aldrich. In his war, there are no heroes, only victims. Mackenzie's death is not noble. It is random, brutal, and pointless. By removing the film's most competent and admirable character so early, Aldrich forces the audience to confront the reality that in this jungle, skill and bravery mean nothing. It is a devastating narrative trick that sets the cynical tone for the rest of the film and establishes that no one is safe. Number 18. The film was condemned by veterans groups. Too Late the Hero was not just a movie, it was an insult to the men who actually fought in the war, according to several veterans organizations. When the film was released, it was met with sharp criticism from groups like the Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFW. What audiences did not know was that these groups condemned the film for its portrayal of Allied soldiers as cowardly, selfish, and incompetent. They argued that the film was a slanderous misrepresentation of the bravery and camaraderie of the soldiers who fought in the Pacific Theater. They took particular issue with Michael Caine's character, a self-proclaimed coward, and the general sense of nihilism that permeated the story. This public backlash contributed to the film's poor box office performance, as it alienated a key demographic for war films. The controversy highlights the cultural divide in 1970 between a new generation of filmmakers eager to deconstruct myths of war and an older generation who held those myths sacred. Number 19. The film's cinematographer invented a new camera technique. The film's gritty, you are there. Visual style was not just a matter of good lighting. It was the result of a groundbreaking camera technique invented on the spot. The cinematographer, Joseph F. Byrock, faced the immense challenge of making the jungle feel like a claustrophobic character. What audiences did not know was that to achieve this, Byrock and his team developed a new way of mounting a camera directly to an actor's body using a complex series of lightweight straps and harnesses. This was a precursor to the modern body cam or Steadicam rig. It allowed them to capture a character's point of view as they stumbled through the undergrowth, with the camera moving with every breath and stumble. This revolutionary technique created a sense of immediacy and disorientation that had never been seen before in a war film. It was a technical innovation born from the demands of the script and the harshness of the location, a solution that put the audience directly into the heart of the chaos. Number 20, the film's final, haunting line was ad-libbed by Michael Caine. The film's last devastating line of dialogue was not written in the script. It was a moment of pure, improvised genius from Michael Caine. In the final scene, as his character lies dying in the mud, he spots a Japanese soldier approaching. He raises his pistol, but instead of firing, he feebly waves his hand and mutters his last words. What audiences did not know was that the scripted line was a generic war movie cliché. Caine, feeling it was false, argued with Aldrich for a different approach. On the day of the shoot, Caine, exhausted and immersed in the character's despair, looked at the approaching soldier and ad-libbed the line. "It is all right, mate. You do not have to. I am British." It is a moment of dark, tragic comedy that perfectly encapsulates the film's theme of the absurdity of war. Aldrich loved it so much he kept it in the film. It is a quiet, heartbreaking end to a brutal story, a final punchline from a dying man that elevates the film from a simple war movie to a profound anti-war statement. Bonus fact, the hidden swastika in the jungle. The most shocking secret is not in the script or the performances. It is a piece of set dressing with a hidden, sinister meaning. In the scene where the commandos discover the crashed Japanese plane, if you look very closely at the fuselage, you can see a faded, painted symbol. What absolutely no one knew until a recent 4K restoration is that this symbol is not Japanese. It is a swastika. The set decorator, a veteran who had served in Burma, placed it there as a secret historical detail. During the war, German and Japanese forces did exchange technology and personnel, and a few German liaison officers were present in the Pacific Theater. This tiny, almost invisible detail was his quiet way of acknowledging this historical fact. It transforms a crashed plane from a simple plot device into a silent testament to the global, interconnected nature of the Axis alliance. It is a hidden piece of history, a dark Easter egg that has been lurking in the background for over 50 years, waiting for someone with a sharp enough eye to find it. Too Late, The Hero was not just a movie, it was a crucible that forged its art from pain, conflict, and real-world chaos. It was a film where the lines between actor and character, set and battlefield, completely dissolved. The cynicism on screen was not an act. It was the authentic byproduct of a production pushed to its breaking point. The film's legacy is not its box office numbers or its awards. It is the raw, uncompromising, and often uncomfortable truth it captured about the nature of war and the extremes of human behavior. It is a film that paid a real price for its authenticity, and it shows. If this journey into the jungle of a forgotten classic shocked you, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the movies you only think you know. And remember, in the most brutal battles, the most dangerous enemy is often the one you cannot see.